So this weekend, I was a bit distressed, would be probably the right word, maybe angered to see that Spotify had removed 70 episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience. That has now moved up to, I think, 131 episodes that have now been removed from the Joe Rogan Experience, which moved from YouTube over to Spotify. I think it was last year after Joe signed that deal. And again, the reason I'm speaking about this is because I guess I have skin in the game, because I was fortunate enough to be invited to Joe's show back in October 2012, and I was episode number 271 of the Joe Rogan Experience. It was one of the most incredible things that ever happened to me in my life. At the time, I had been doing London Real for about a year, and the truth is that Joe Rogan inspired London Real. I used to watch his episodes back when they were on Vimeo back in the day, back when he was doing it on Ustream or whatever it was. And I used to watch those things when I was a banker in the city of London on my weekends, and they used to inspire me. They used to change me. There were some way for me to tap into these conversations that I couldn't have otherwise, and they gave my life meaning. I remember Graham Hancock talking to Joe when he was at his house. I remember Aubrey Marcus talking about ayahuasca for the first time, and I was like, this voyeur into this world of conversation and connection that I just wasn't a part of. I had no way to get that. I didn't have that peer group in London, and there was no, YouTube on demand for this back then. And it was really important to shape who I would become as a man and who I was in this society. And quite literally, Joe Rogan inspired me to start London Real. Quite literally. I literally used to split my screen in three, just like Joe used to do. And he inspired everything that we created over 10 years. I spent 10 years of my life broadcasting because of Joe. And to see him censored in this way is very frustrating. And on one hand, I celebrate that Spotify has allowed Joe to continue broadcasting some very controversial messages, and I'm so glad that they have, and it might be one of the reasons why our recent live stream of David Icke wasn't taken down from YouTube, because I think YouTube is starting to assess the situation, and they're not censoring me the same way they did 2 years ago, where they would have never tolerated David Icke live stream, where they nearly deplatformed me, where they took down 50 or 80 videos from my platform and threatened me month after month after month. And if it wasn't for Spotify showing YouTube that there wasn't other platforms that are willing to allow people this essential human right to freedom of speech, then we might not even be in the situation where so far, my recent David Icke live stream is still on YouTube. Now, I might say this and maybe they'll go take it down right now. My point is that I don't like the fact that they are now removing some of Joe Rogan's content. And, a lot of things are coming up with the media about things that Joe might or might not have said in the context he might have said that, and he's obviously being vilified and gone after by certain members of, maybe the more liberal side because of his quote-unquote conservative message. But I don't see it that way. And again, I've spent a lot of time consuming Joe Rogan episodes. I probably listened to nearly every one of them. They inspired my show. I spent time with Joe at the Ice House Comedy Club in LA, where he used to film his episodes in the back room. Upon first initial meeting with Joe Rogan, he gave me the biggest hug ever. All right. It was just this incredible experience of being there with Joe. And I saw a man who's full of love, who's full of openness, who wants to ask questions and challenge the world. And this is a man who constantly spends his time being critical of himself, as do I. And people need to see that and not judge someone on things they have said in the past that's been compiled in a video. No, he shouldn't have said those things, and he admitted that he shouldn't have said those things. But this is a man who's out there pushing the envelope, as maybe only comedians do, as only people that get in trouble do. And this guy is really a good person, and we need people like him. And if we're going to have pioneers like Joe Rogan, then guess what? We're going to have those people make mistakes. And if you want to take one piece of something that happened back in the day and put it out there for that to define that person and everything that they produce in the future, then we're going to have no more heroes out there and no more innovators and no more people that create the world we want. We're just going to have followers and copiers and mimickers, and we're going to be a sad, sad, sad society. So I'm sending my love and support out to Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan experience, which as a concept is an incredible, beautiful thing that even Joe has admit is beyond his control, right? He's just actually just doing what is pulling him into this space. And I think that shows who he really is. And he's a man who's constantly questioning himself. He's super hard on himself. And if anyone's struggling lately, it's probably Joe. And let this man evolve. Let's learn from him. But let's not delete his content and erase history. And, Spotify, please don't do this. Yes, back him and do what you're doing, but don't remove content. By the way, Spotify removed my podcast audio content from 2020 with a lot of important guests that put out ideas that later would be mentioned by the President of the United States. But back in 2020, they were removed. So, Spotify, you've got your own things to sort out. Again, I would rather Rogan be with you so he can do what he does, because right now on YouTube, maybe he couldn't. But you need to be checked too. And don't delete content. I don't think that's the way forward. And don't delete my episode 271, because that would break my heart. It was such a special moment. And Joe having me on his show probably kept me doing London Real when I had my own dark times, when nobody was watching the show, when nobody was listening to the show, when there was no way to fund this show, when everything was going wrong. It was just Joe who kept pushing forward, and he's still an inspiration to this day. And sending out peace and love to him, to everybody who's been on that experience, and to everyone in the world who can maybe live, learn, love, forget. And the last thing I would say is this, is that these arguments, this bickering, this division, all it does is separate us. And it takes us away from the final message, which is we are all one. And once we realize that, we'll realize what's going on. And this is just meant to divide us. So don't let them do that. Just come out of love, send peace and love to all of you, and have a wonderful week.